Connecting HUD showings to the final closing process. In the last section, we discussed showing HUD homes, managing buyer expectations, explaining as-is conditions, and helping buyers understand repair concerns. Now we move into one of the most important parts of the HUD transaction, closing the sale. This is where everything comes together. At this stage, the bid has been accepted, financing is moving forward, inspections are completed, repairs have been evaluated. Deadlines become extremely important. Buyers often think closing is just paperwork, but experienced HUD agents know this is where many transactions either succeed smoothly or fall apart. HUD closings involve government timelines, specialized documents, lender coordination, escrow compliance, asset manager oversight, and strict approval procedures. Organization, communication, and deadline management are critical. The first step after contract acceptance. Once HUD accepts the bid, the contract is formally executed and returned by HUD's asset manager. This begins the closing process. At this point, the lender begins underwriting. Escrow is opened, earnest money is processed, inspections are scheduled, title work begins, HUD timelines begin counting down. The transaction becomes time-sensitive immediately. Experienced HUD agents know delays can create serious problems. The standard HUD closing window. HUD transactions generally operate on about a 45-day closing timeline, unless the contract states otherwise. That may sound like plenty of time, but HUD closings often involve lender underwriting, appraisal issues, repair coordination, document reviews, and government procedures. Successful agents monitor loan progress, inspection completion, escrow updates, contract deadlines, required signatures, funding status. Waiting until the last minute can put the transaction at risk. A real-world closing delay. An Arizona buyer once assumed the lender would handle everything automatically after HUD accepted the bid. Unfortunately, documents were submitted late, underwriting conditions remained incomplete, appraisal revisions were needed, and closing documents were delayed. The transaction nearly missed the HUD deadline. The buyer later said, "I did not realize HUD was so strict about timelines." This is why agents must keep educating buyers throughout the closing process. The buyer's responsibilities. The buyer plays a major role in closing successfully. The buyer is generally responsible for completing the loan application quickly, providing lender documents promptly, scheduling inspections, depositing earnest money, signing disclosures, reviewing closing documents, coordinating funds needed for closing. Buyers who delay paperwork can create serious closing risks. A helpful reminder is, every day matters in a HUD transaction. The lender's role. The lender is one of the most important players after contract acceptance. The lender handles underwriting, appraisal coordination, financing approval, closing package preparation, escrow communication, and final funding. Because HUD transactions involve strict deadlines and government procedures, an experienced HUD lender is extremely valuable. A lender unfamiliar with HUD may miss timelines, delay approvals, mishandle repair escrow procedures, or create unnecessary complications. The HUD asset manager's role. The asset manager oversees much of the HUD transaction process. The AM monitors contract compliance, deadlines, closing progress, document submissions, extension requests, closing approval procedures. Agents may communicate with the AM about missing documents, escrow concerns, buyer delays, funding status, or extension needs. Strong communication with the asset manager helps keep the transaction on track. Title company and escrow officer. In many HUD transactions, HUD generally selects the title company or closing agent. This can surprise buyers because traditional Arizona resale transactions often allow more flexibility. The HUD selected closing team usually handles escrow coordination, title review, closing disclosure preparation, funding coordination, deed recording, and final disbursement. Because HUD closings involve strict document compliance, the escrow officer becomes a key part of the transaction. Earnest money and escrow. Once escrow opens, earnest money must be deposited according to HUD instructions. Escrow timelines begin, title review starts, and buyer/lender coordination becomes more intense. Failure to deposit earnest money properly or follow escrow instructions may jeopardize the transaction. HUD takes contract compliance seriously. Inspections. During closing, even though HUD homes are sold as is, buyers should still complete inspections quickly. During closing, buyers may inspect the property, evaluate repairs, obtain contractor estimates, and review financing impacts. However, buyers must remember, HUD generally does not renegotiate repairs. The property remains as is. Inspection timelines are limited. The buyer must move quickly and stay organized. Closing costs and the closing disclosure. Buyers often misunderstand closing costs in HUD transactions. HUD may contribute towards certain buyer closing costs, but only if requested properly during the original offer submission. If closing costs were not requested correctly in the bid, the buyer may be responsible for them later. Buyers may still need funds for loan fees, appraisal fees, inspections, prepaid taxes and insurance, down payment, escrow reserves, and lender costs. Before closing, the buyer receives a closing disclosure, or CD, showing loan terms, closing costs, escrow amounts, interest rate, and cash needed to close. HUD's asset manager generally reviews and approves the CD before closing can finalize. Final walkthrough and deed. Many buyers complete a final walkthrough shortly before closing. The walkthrough helps confirm the property condition remains substantially the same and that no major new damage has occurred. However, it is not an opportunity to renegotiate repairs. HUD homes remain as is. At closing, HUD generally conveys the property using a special warranty deed. This deed generally limits HUD's warranty to the period during which HUD owned the property. Buyers should discuss title questions with the escrow officer or title company. What if closing delays occur? Delays can happen due to appraisal issues, loan approval problems, missing documents, repair escrow complications, or buyer funding issues. If a delay occurs, an extension request may need to be submitted to HUD. Extensions are not automatic. Some extensions may involve fees, penalties, or additional documentation. This is why proactive communication is so important. Arizona Commissioner Standards and HUD closings. Arizona agents helping buyers close HUD homes must follow Commissioner Standards. Under AACR 4-28-1101, agents must protect and promote the client's interests while dealing fairly with all parties. Under AACR 4-28-1101, agents must exercise reasonable care when communicating material facts, deadlines, costs, and procedures. Agents should explain timelines clearly, communicate closing costs honestly, encourage prompt buyer responses, coordinate with lenders carefully, and avoid misrepresenting HUD procedures. Why HUD closings require specialized knowledge. HUD closings are not simply normal closings with extra paperwork. They involve structured timelines, government oversight, specialized documents, repair financing issues, strict compliance procedures, and asset manager coordination. Successful HUD agents rely on organization, education, communication, patience, problem solving. When handled correctly, buyers may gain affordable home ownership, equity opportunity, renovation potential, and long-term financial growth. For many buyers, the closing table represents the successful completion of a challenging but rewarding HUD home journey. As we continue through this course, we will move into advanced compliance topics, post-closing responsibilities, and real-world HUD problem-solving scenarios. Online discussion. Question 1. Why are timelines especially important during the HUD closing process? Answer. HUD transactions involve strict deadlines, lender coordination, escrow requirements, and document submissions. Missing deadlines may cause delays, extension fees, or cancellation. Question 2. Why is choosing an experienced HUD lender important? Answer. HUD experienced lenders understand government timelines, FHA requirements, repair escrow procedures, and underwriting expectations. Question 3. Why should buyers review the closing disclosure carefully? Answer. The closing disclosure shows final loan terms, closing costs, escrow amounts, and total cash needed to close.